This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hope of containing the coronavirus pandemic rises after one experimental vaccine proves to be over 90% effective. We update you on the escalating tensions in Ethiopia's restive Tigray region. And a week-long event in the east of China celebrates cultural cooperation and exchanges between China and Africa. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. And with me is Uche Okoronkwo with a preview of your business news.
Thanks, Lindy. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. Tunisia set to launch the country's first satellite in March next year. And South Africa discovers a second new gas reserve in its Western Cape. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, it is back to you.
Thanks, Uche. We begin with the exciting news of a possible breakthrough in efforts to contain the coronavirus pandemic. American pharmaceutical company Pfizer says its experimental COVID-19 vaccine is more than 90% effective. This is considered a major victory in the fight against a disease that has killed over 1 million people worldwide and slumped economies globally. Pfizer and German partner BioNTech are the first drug makers to show successful data from a large-scale clinical trial. Well, CGTN reporter John Terrett brings us some more insight into these latest developments coming out of the US. He joins us live from New York. John, of course, this is seen as a major breakthrough in efforts to contain the coronavirus. What more can you tell us about this vaccine that's being developed by Pfizer and BioNTech?
Well, Lindy, it all comes down to those two companies. Pfizer, which is based here in New York, and its partner in this search for a vaccine, which is BioNTech, which is a German company. And they've been undertaking phase 3 trials. And today, Monday in America, we got the results of those phase 3 trials, and they were better than anybody had expected. 90% effective and very few side effects. And you might say to me, well, how is it possible that Pfizer could blow its own trumpet when it comes to its own drug? And the answer to that is that this was an independent body that looked into these results. This was not Pfizer and BioNTech, and I'm told that they were actually quite surprised at the size of the effectiveness, 90%. Now, the Pfizer CEO, who's called Dr. Albert Bourla, has been speaking on the business television station here, CNBC, today. He called it a great day for science. And what it means is that you will have protection from COVID-19 after 28 days if you take it from the initial vaccination point, and there are 2 doses involved. Now, Mr. Bourla, Dr. Bourla, says that he sees light at the end of the tunnel, and because I'm here in New York, I can tell you that that comment set the Dow Jones Industrial Average on fire today. It was up by 1,500 points in the early stages of the day, and it's currently up 1,118 points, a gain of 4%, building on the record week it had last week, the best in an election week since 1932, on the back of the Biden win of the presidency. Lindy?
Well, it is, of course, certainly very good news, John, but many countries, particularly here in Africa, will be now concerned about the availability and the rollout of an effective COVID-19 vaccine. So what do we know then about the scale of manufacturing and the scale of distribution that's planned for this Pfizer BioNTech vaccine?
Yes, and we are very well aware here of the anxiety being felt in Africa at this time regarding a vaccine. And Dr. Bourla, when he said it was a great day for science, he also said a great day for humanity. But when it comes to Africa, I'm afraid I only have limited good news. Pfizer and BioNTech are saying that 42% of those that took part in the phase 3 trials were from racially and ethnically diverse backgrounds. So they weren't all white people, which means that this vaccine works for all of us. The color of our skin is not an issue. Now, Pfizer and BioNTech say they intend to apply to the US Food and Drug Administration, which is the body that oversees the licensing of vaccines and drugs in this country, somewhere in the third week of November, which will be the point at which they have 2 months worth of data. Now, Pfizer and BioNTech say they reckon they can make 50 million doses by the end of 2020 and 1.3 billion by the end of 2021, and that includes a deal they did with the Trump administration for $2 billion for 100 million doses, which I suspect will go mainly to Americans. But that $2 billion was supposed to be used to fund and look at ways of distributing a vaccine once it is widely available. And by the way, it may be several months. Joe Biden is speaking in Delaware now, his home state. He's just suggested that the vaccine may be several months off. Nonetheless, unfortunately, when it comes to Africa, this particular vaccine requires a traveling temperature of -94 Fahrenheit. So that is very, very cold indeed. And this raises logistical and distribution issues. Now, Pfizer say they're going to put the drug into suitcase-size boxes and ship it around the world from Michigan and also from Belgium. They reckon they can get 7 million boxes a day to airports. But of course, regarding Africa, I'm afraid the issue of the cost of the drug, most importantly, and then the distribution, particularly to faraway remote places, is questions that are yet unable to be answered, Lindy.
And of course, you mentioned that Joe Biden is speaking in Delaware today. He is yet to be officially confirmed as President of the United States, but already seems to be very keen to address the grim COVID-19 situation in the United States. What's the latest on this?
Well, the latest is very, very fresh. In fact, he's just finished speaking. He was speaking in his home state of Delaware until a few seconds ago. And one of the things that he said was that the virus challenge is still immense. Now, this news from Pfizer and BioNTech comes on the very day that President-elect Biden has announced the names behind his, what he calls, COVID-19 Transition Task Force. They were announced earlier today, and I don't know how relevant it is for an African audience, but let me give you 3 of the names just so you know. One of them is Vivek Murthy, who was actually born in the United Kingdom, but is a former Surgeon General under the Obama administration. We think of him as being America's top doctor, basically. He is one of the co-chairs of the task force, as is a man called David Kessler, who's the former head of the Food and Drug Administration here. That's the body that signs off on these vaccines. And Dr. Marcella Nunes-Smith, who is from Yale University. Now, whatever President-elect Biden says today or in the future, he's not going to be in office for over 2 months, pretty much 2.5 months. He doesn't get into office until midday, local time, Eastern time, on January the 20th. So we have 2.5 months to go, and I'm afraid that just means a lot of uncertainty. We don't know how President Trump will react regarding COVID-19. You know, he's tended to brush it as under the carpet as not so important. That's not the stance being taken by President-elect Joe Biden, but he's not going to be in office for many weeks. So there's a great deal of uncertainty ahead, not least of all, as we heard just now from President-elect Biden regarding the availability of this vaccine. He himself has just said it could be many months. Lindy?
Indeed. Well, thank you so much, John. It may well be a rather complicated transition period in the United States, but good to know that the coronavirus is a priority. Now, the number of COVID-19 cases around the world has topped 50 million. More than 1.2 million people have died. The latest numbers from Johns Hopkins University show the United States is hardest hit, with total infections approaching 10 million. India ranks second, that's with more than 8.5 million cases, followed by Brazil, standing at 5.6 million cases. Well, the coronavirus pandemic has had an outsized impact on the small country of Belgium, which now has the highest infection rate in Europe and one of the highest death rates in the world. Hospitals are faced with a record-breaking influx of patients, and it's led to a massive game of human chess. Dozens of patients are being transferred within hospital networks across provinces and now across borders as the system tries to stave off collapse. Tony Waterman was granted special access to film the first helicopter transfer of a COVID-19 patient from a hospital in the hard-hit city of Liège to Germany.
To understand how critical the situation has become for some Belgian hospitals, you need to head to the tarmac. CHU Liège Hospital is so maxed out on capacity, it's now airlifting COVID-19 patients across the border to Germany for treatment in a desperate bid to free up space. 59-year-old Freddie is the very first patient CHU is flying out. Space is tight, but after some skillful maneuvering, it's liftoff. While Freddie heads to Munster, hospital staff inside continue fighting a second wave much larger than the first. A laid-back summer has given way to record hospital admissions across Belgium, and all 50 of CHU's COVID-19 ICU beds are occupied. Despite attempts to increase capacity, the hospital is transferring up to 20 patients a day, mostly by ambulance, to other hospitals, provinces, and now other countries.
At some point, we can't move the walls or put in more beds. So if the total capacity is saturated, that means we will either have to disconnect some patients who are in intensive care in order to welcome others, or tell the other patients there is no more room.
Among those contracting the virus are the health workers themselves, 15% at CHU. To keep the system from collapsing, some hospitals are asking doctors and nurses who have tested positive but show no symptoms to continue working. Muriel Baillet is the chief nurse in this COVID-19 ICU ward, one of 5 at CHU. She says her team feels more prepared this time around, but the second wave is presenting new challenges, especially around patient care.
It's extremely intense emotionally. Most of the patients coming to us now are conscious and they're stressed out because they know what's happening. They require more attention and care. I'm worried for my team and for how long we're going to have to hold on.
It could be a while yet. The average stay is at least 3 weeks, and her ICU has been completely full since mid-October.
Looking in, you can see patients tied up to tubing. Some of them are receiving supplemental oxygen, and 5 of them are on a ventilator. And while transferring patients to Germany could free up capacity and alleviate some of the pressure on these healthcare workers, it could be just a temporary solution.
Germany is fighting its own surge in cases, and at some point it may deny transfers as its priorities shift to its own citizens.
That is the risk, of course. Cases are rising in Germany too, so I'm sure the doors will close in a few days in the other provinces and in the other countries.
Before that happens, CHU Liège medical director Dr. Pierre Guillet hopes things will stabilize in Belgium. And there are glimmers of hope. Infections have dipped slightly in the past week, but with an average of 14,000 new cases a day, hospitals will remain full for weeks to come. And the transfer of patients like Freddie will remain crucial. After he was taken off the helicopter in Munster, the aircrew returned to Liège, picking up another patient as the never-ending shuffle to find space continues. Tony Waterman, CGTN, Liège.
Well, let's return now to our top story, and that, of course, is that breakthrough news of American pharmaceutical company Pfizer saying its experimental COVID-19 vaccine is more than 90% effective. And, of course, it has been working with its German partner, BioNTech, to produce this vaccine. Here's more now from CGTN's Joy Kiruki.
The joint developers of the experimental vaccine say they have so far found no serious safety concerns. They expect to seek United States emergency use authorization later this month.
It is true that this type of medication has no approval yet, which is why we are carrying out this compatibility study with more than 40,000 test persons to find out if there are any intolerance, even a rare one. What we can prove with this study is that the vaccine is compatible and that side effects are mild and moderate, and that there are no severe side effects.
Pfizer said the interim analysis was conducted after 94 participants in the trial developed COVID-19. The company did not break down exactly how many of those who fell ill received the vaccine. 2 shots of the medicine were administered 3 weeks apart.
The way that the study works, it is that we randomized individuals in one-to-one, which means that 15,000 will receive the vaccine, 15,000 will receive a placebo, and then we are waiting to see if this population of 30,000 people will start getting disease. And the expectation, if the vaccine works, is that the people that are getting disease are coming from the group that didn't receive the vaccine. And those that receive the vaccine will have much less than those that they didn't in terms of disease.
The efficacy rate is well above the 50% effectiveness required by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for coronavirus vaccine. The data is yet to be peer-reviewed or published in a medical journal. Pfizer says it will do so once it has results from the entire trial.
I understand those that they are skeptical. And they are skeptical because there is so much politicized, the science right now. But many people will feel that for the sake of political gains or not gains, vaccines will be submitted or not submitted. And this is the worst situation that the society can be in.
Pfizer and BioNTech have a $1 billion contract with the U.S. government to deliver 100 million vaccine doses beginning next year. They have also reached supply agreements with the European Union, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Japan. This latest success provides hope that other vaccines in development against the coronavirus may also prove to be effective. Joy Kirukijuma, CGTN.
Well, time for a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. Coming up, we update you on the escalating tensions in Ethiopia's rest of Tigray region. And rival factions in Libya step up efforts to find lasting peace with fresh talks in Tunisia.
My name is Sylvia Dhiambo and I'm a reporter from Kibera, the biggest slum in Africa. Since COVID-19 hit Kenya, me and my fellow student journalists have been reporting on life here during the pandemic. Life has been tough. With the rising unemployment, many families have struggled to put food on the table. But one light has been the mothers in Kibera, who have managed to support their children and community, no matter the challenges we face. For CGTN Africa, we bring you the stories of these women, Kibera's inspirational mothers.
Today marks the 6th day since Ethiopia's army began its offensive against the Tigray regional forces. Experts have voiced concerns over the military operation, saying it could break Ethiopia apart. But the country's Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, is reassuring the world that his country will not descend into chaos. Tensions boiled over after the federal government accused regional authorities of attacking a military base. Tigrayan officials denied the claim. Major General Mohammed Tassema from the Ethiopian National Defense Force says several victories have been registered on different battle fronts. He adds the mission will be over sooner than expected.
The war is between extremist TPLF group and the people of Ethiopia. That group wants to give the sovereignty of the country to foreign enemies, and they want to hold power through force. We are defeating them in every front, and we are working to finish the job without significantly harming the people of Tigray. We are hitting the enemy by abiding all basic infrastructural areas, and we will bring those behind this furor into justice in no time.
For several months now, tensions have been escalating between the Ethiopian government and the TPLF, the governing party of the Tigray region. Here's a timeline of key events leading up to the conflict. In 2019, Ethiopia's ruling coalition agreed to form a single party, but the TPLF refused to merge with 3 other ethnic-based groups. In September this year, national elections were postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but the TPLF went ahead with regional elections in defiance of the federal government. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government declared the vote illegal and cut funding to the region. And now in November, the military was sent into the region after the TPLF was accused of attacking federal troops. Both the federal government and the TPLF have deemed the other side as illegitimate. Well, let's turn to Libya now. The country's rival factions have started much-awaited political peace talks in Tunisia. The talks aim to create a roadmap to presidential and parliamentary elections. CGTN's Adnan Chouachi has the details.
Tunisian President Kais Saied, while attending the opening ceremony of Libya's peace talks, urged stakeholders to respect a temporary constitution. Kais Saied also insisted on stable political institutions for Libya.
Allow me to suggest that anyone who rules during the transitional period does not run for any position in the upcoming constitutional institutions, neither to the presidency nor to the parliamentary membership. This legal ban could protect everybody from the lingering tensions. None will take advantage of his position or responsibility to serve the interests of any party. You are free to choose your way, but this is one of the means to ease tensions.
The head of the UN support mission in Libya, Stephanie Williams, noted that the dialogue in Tunis is the most important opportunity since the 2014 Libya talks in Tripoli.
Today we stand on the outskirts of the new Libya. After years of division, wars, destruction, the multiple crises, we are stepping forward with firm steps in the multiple tracks managed by the UN mission. We strongly rely on the will of the Libyan people and their right to protect their homeland, its sovereignty and resources.
Libya experts assert that the 75 participants chosen by the United Nations to represent an array of political viewpoints, regional interests and social groups may have to make concessions in order to reach a political settlement and to cement a ceasefire deal.
There are many foreign interests in Libya. Most participants are under pressure from foreign powers. It's impossible to strike a lasting deal without compromise. The future of a stable Libya is around a negotiating table and not in the battleground.
The UN, Stephanie Williams, announced that she wants the Tunisia political talks to set a roadmap for elections as soon as possible and establish a single, unified authority across Libya that can manage the process. The Tunisian president insisted on respecting Libya's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Kais Saied also warned against speaking about Western and Eastern Libya. He said this discourse paves the way for dividing the North African state and other neighboring countries. Adnan Chouachi, CGTN, Tunis.
Nigerian health authorities say an outbreak of yellow fever in the country has claimed more than 50 lives over the past 2 months. This amidst the ongoing efforts by the government to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Correspondent Phil Ihaza reports from Abuja.
The Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, confirms the deaths in the southern states of Enugu and Delta, where yellow fever outbreak was reported. Yellow fever is an acute viral hemorrhagic disease that can kill within 10 days if symptoms become severe. The NCDC director, Chikwe Ihekwazu, says since early September, both states have reported cases with symptoms including fever, headache, fatigue, jaundice, and vomiting. Now, this is a double blow as the country intensifies efforts to contain the coronavirus disease. Health experts blame the yellow fever outbreak on low immunization rates across the country, hampered by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the NCDC boss says the agency has set up an emergency system to coordinate response activities and has sent rapid response teams to the two states. The NCDC is also working in partnership with other health bodies like the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency and the World Health Organization to curb the outbreak of the disease. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
To Cameroon now, where gang violence is on the rise in the economic capital, Douala. Local officials have arrested dozens to curb the rising insecurity. CGTN's Daniela Pearson reports on how local residents are coping with the situation.
Attacks by gangs, both day and night, in Douala's neighborhoods leave many fearing for their safety and livelihoods.
They came to beat up the traders, to take things from the traders and other people who are passing by. Because there was no shortage of bandits in the crowd, other bandits who came by took advantage of the opportunity to cause trouble without even being aware of what was going on.
The perpetrators, mainly youth, roam with weapons such as machetes, clubs, knives, and even screwdrivers to terrorize and steal.
I don't find this occurrence strange, because on the streets, there are a lot of challenges and sometimes you have to do this to survive, because you don't have a job. You've got no means of support to get a meal or money. You've got nothing to wear. Sometimes we do things like this to survive on the streets.
The Cameroonian port city of 3.7 million residents saw at least 4 districts attacked just last month alone. The district of Daido formed a self-defense council, but attacks are still rising.
Today we are in the process of seeing with each village chief how to set up a community watch committee, no longer across the whole of the Daido canton, but a community watch in every village to ensure good response. Because the canton is so big, if we put them in each village, the response will be stronger.
Local officials reported that dozens have already been rounded up and jailed. But not everyone agrees with this approach.
They are street kids. Perhaps when they find themselves in difficult situations, they are forced to use violence, to use alternative means to feed themselves and to protect themselves. But with what we offer them at St. Nicodeme chain of shelters, along with the state, I think these children are given a second chance. They accept what we offer them in terms of education and the opportunity we give them.
Many locals remain angry and frustrated over what they see as official indifference. Attention is largely focused on conflict elsewhere, in Cameroon's Anglophone regions and areas affected by jihadists in the north. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
Thousands of Kenyan workers have joined the informal sector after losing their formal employment due to the COVID-19 pandemic. CGTN's Robert Nagila caught up with one such person who started a business to sustain his family.
Hello. When we first met Rickson Itonga back in April, the food and beverage manager of a leading international hotel was on paid leave as the establishment he worked for navigated the impact of COVID-19. But last month, he was informed his employment had been terminated, along with hundreds of others.
It was traumatizing.
Using his redundancy payment and skills acquired in the hotel industry, he set up a small eatery to sustain his family. He admits it wasn't easy breaking the news to his wife.
I came and shared with my wife. She was a bit stressed the first week. And then I told her, since we have some money to push us through, it is now us to keep in mind that the job is normal and we plan ourselves.
It's been a tough year for the job market in Kenya due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The unemployment rate doubled to 10.4% in the second quarter of this year compared to 5.2% last year. The father of 3 knows he is fortunate. Thousands of others who lost their jobs due to COVID-19 have yet to secure a regular source of income.
I'm here because now the situation forced me to be here now, fully. Now, we are not into saving much than to have something to put in our stomach.
Rickson says without his wife, picking himself up after losing his job would have been more challenging. For the moment, he's considering moving the family to a smaller apartment to cut costs, but has plans to expand the business and grow his income.
I'm praying to God that come January, everything to stabilize so that I can open a few restaurants.
His is a story of hope and resilience. But like many other small businesses, he would like more support from the government so that small businesses like his can thrive in these trying times. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
reminder of our top stories this hour. American pharmaceutical company Pfizer says its experimental COVID-19 vaccine is more than 90% effective. Pfizer and German partner BioNTech are the first drug makers to show successful data from a large-scale clinical trial. Today marks the 6th day since Ethiopia's army began its offensive against the Tigray regional forces. Experts have voiced concern about the military operation, but the country's Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, is reassuring the world that his country will not descend into chaos. And the United Nations has initiated talks on Libya's future in Tunisia. The process is aimed at drawing a roadmap to national elections and bring an end to nearly a decade of chaos and bloodshed. Acting UN Libya envoy Stephanie Williams says this is the best opportunity in 6 years to restore peace to the North African country. And let's now go to Uche for your latest business news.
Thank you, Lindy. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. Tunisia is set to launch the country's first satellite in March next year. And South Africa discovers a second new gas reserve in the Western Cape.
It's just taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Well, let's start off with Tunisia. The country is set to launch its first satellite in March next year in an event that will coincide with its 65th Independence Day celebrations. Now, the satellite, which is called Challenge 1, will be launched from a base in Kazakhstan aboard the Russian Soyuz 2 rocket. It is expected to play a critical role in improving the provision of data, including climate information that will be helpful to farmers. Here's CGTN's Adnan Shaushi reporting.
The African space market is rapidly evolving, with Tunisia set to mark its first venture into space. The Tunisian satellite, which is known as Challenge 1, will use a new protocol, LoRa, or long range in space, which is a low-power wide area network.
To the world, we want to show that Tunisia has good skills, and now we are in the club of nations who work in space and technology of space. So it's for us a big responsibility to be successful in this challenge and to launch our first Tunisian satellite with the technology of Internet of Things.
The Telnet Group general manager says he's in favor of the transfer of satellite technology to other African nations. Telnet also plans to launch a constellation of 30 satellites for African services and the Internet of Things.
As Tunisian company, we think that we have a responsibility against our continent, Africa. So as we have taken the technology from the developed country in Europe, in US, and in Russia, and in China, I think it's in our responsibility to introduce this technology to our neighbors and to our countries in Africa, which Tunisia can be the bridge.
There are many possible uses for Challenge 1, ranging from remotely activating solar pumps in the Sahara to tracking livestock crossing Tunisian borders into Algeria or Libya, and even keeping track of the climate. In a bid to share its technology expertise, Telnet Group opened a subsidiary in Saudi Arabia in collaboration with Middle East Fiber Cable Manufacturing to launch a new entity that ties Telnet Arabia. The new subsidiary now operates in space and earth telecommunications to serve the Middle East market.
Our objective is to help Saudi engineers to make alone their satellite, and we will give them our expertise, and after that our Saudi subsidiary and our Saudi implementation can do the same thing for the countries of Middle East. And in that case, we can also launch a constellation of 30 satellites for this region.
Challenge 1 was developed by Tunisian engineers and skills. It will be launched from a base in Kazakhstan aboard the Russian Soyuz 2 rocket. Mohamed Frikha, the founder and CEO of Telnet Group, says his company has paved the way for other Tunisian and African tech companies to become satellite manufacturers. Currently, Telnet Holding has subsidiaries in France, Germany, the US, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. Abdel Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
And over in South Africa, a second new gas reserve has been discovered off the coast of Mossel Bay in the Western Cape. The discovery was made by petroleum giant Total and its partners. Now, they're currently on a $400 million oil and gas exploration drilling campaign along the southern coastline. Here's CGTN's Travis Andrews with more on that report.
It's the second new gas discovery by Total, and like the first, the Outeniqua Basin continues to show a significant amount of good quality extractable gas. Discovered more than 170 kilometers off the coast of Mossel Bay at the Lipet well, the find is within close proximity to last year's equally significant discovery of gas at the Brilpatter well. The find has been widely welcomed as an encouraging sign of the significant potential of South Africa's offshore gas reserves.
Total's discovery, especially in South Africa, where most people had written off and most people have thought you wouldn't find the big finds like in Mozambique or Angola, it gives a lot of hope. And it also gives a lot of hope for South Africa at a time where, if you look at the domestication of gas and climate change, the change from gas to power, it gives us hope. And it also talks about there are still world-class discoveries. There are still world-class oil and gas plays.
Last year, Total and its partners made their first discovery of gas in the region, with an estimation of around 1 billion barrels of oil equivalent. Now their return has once again paid off. The drilling campaign may be carried out in a largely frontier area, but the stakes are high and the returns potentially even higher.
It's a great find, particularly because it confirms South Africa like an oil and gas province, a viable oil and gas province. And also because it moves directly towards supporting South Africa's quest for gas to power as a solution for South Africa's power problems.
And the monetization of the gas will be critical to the country's long-term energy transition strategy. The exploration of the resource will allow South Africa not just to sustain its own power needs, but also other African countries wanting to follow a cleaner path to new forms of energy.
The big thing you've got to look at is you look to the future. You say, good, how am I going to create a gas hub that can be based in South Africa and still monetize gas that can power Zimbabwe, power Botswana, power Lesotho, and power even Zambia and all the neighboring countries, because you have a 300 million SADC market, which power is a big issue. So learning how to use that gas to power the neighboring countries.
For now, work continues assessing the important data collected on the reserve, which may help development studies and facilitate engagement with South African authorities about the groundwork for the commercialization of the gas. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
And let's go to Shanghai now for the latest from China's annual International Import Expo. Smart equipment manufacturers have presented their solutions to help fight the coronavirus pandemic. Our reporter Xiu Hiao shows us some of them.
ping-pong robots, smart assembly lines, and robotic arms. This is the high-tech equipment pavilion, a world of dazzling gadgets and futuristic scenes.
Every year, the high-tech equipment pavilion attracts the biggest audience at the CIIE. Machines, gadgets, robots, it provides us with a glimpse into what the future holds. But this year, many exhibitors have pivoted their focus onto smart healthcare. The reason is obvious. We're still stuck in the COVID-19 pandemic.
Swiss company ABB has brought its new robotics lab system to the fair. Known as RAVE, the system automates sample testing. Taking over the job of laboratory workers, it can process close to 4,000 samples a day. This could provide a big boost for COVID-19 testing.
Replace the manual procedures in the laboratory and the medical centers. So then basically, in a situation like COVID-19, very safe for the medical staff. They no need to touch any about the virus personally.
But testing alone is not enough to combat the pandemic. Social distancing is another key factor. Infineon, a German semiconductor maker, is contributing in this area, helping buildings, restaurants, and other public places to better monitor the flow of people.
The core technology is the radar chip and algorithm that make tallying a lot more convenient. Like facial recognition, our radar system does not collect such sensitive data. That means the privacy of those who enter the facility will be protected.
And 5G can make a difference as well. Finnish telecom company Nokia is partnering with Chinese hospitals to provide the most timely high-quality diagnostics. One project is 5G connected ambulances, which will be able to provide high-quality video streaming so that patients can get diagnostics the moment they're picked up.
Well, I mean, 5G is really a game changer. Obviously, in fighting the pandemic, you don't necessarily need remote surgery for that. But of course, fast response time, fast diagnostics are very important.
Accuracy, safety, and speed. Digital technologies are bringing their advantages into healthcare. As the world is still battling a deadly virus, the exhibitors at the CIIE have shown a variety of possibilities to save lives. 崔慧瑶 CGTN, Shanghai.
Well, that's all for now on Africa Live Biz, but coming up later on Global Business Africa, speakers and heads of parliaments from 7 African nations have launched a campaign seeking debt cancellation for countries on the continent. We'll take a look into the details. All of that coming up top of the hour. For now, it is back to you, Lindy.
Thanks, Uchim. Well, let's take a short break. Here's what's still ahead on Africa Live. Coming up, a week-long event in the east of China celebrates cultural cooperation and exchanges between China and Africa.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival, and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
A week of cultural cooperation and exchange between China and Africa has kicked off in the east of China. The event in Xinhua City, Zhejiang Province, includes an economic and trade forum. Shang Jianlong has more.
Since 2018, China's eastern city of Jinhua has held the China-Africa Cultural Cooperation and Exchange Week. Officials from over 20 African countries are attending this year. In addition to cross-cultural communication, the event also serves as a platform for promoting business cooperation between China and Africa, attracting more than 200 enterprises from home and abroad. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, a majority of events have been moved online this year. The forum has invited African ambassadors to China to take part in live stream shopping to sell popular goods from their home countries. Around 1 million people are expected to join the online event.
Introducing e-commerce will be a great opportunity for Africans because e-commerce will help them to connect directly with the Chinese companies and also overseas markets. Therefore, Africans will be able to participate in global trade.
Seated in the middle in the eastern China's Zhejiang province, Jinhua is known for its big international market and foreign trade cooperation.
When you have an event like this, it gives you opportunity to work closely together and better develop trade policies. It gives opportunity for networking. Then also, this kind of event also gives African countries opportunities to showcase their culture, their products, and also be able to sell.
Due to the Belt and Road Initiative, cooperation between Jinhua and Africa has been strengthened. And despite the pandemic disrupting global trade, during the first 9 months of this year, the import and export volume between Jinhua and Africa reached almost $8.7 billion, about 34% of the total in Zhejiang province. Looking back to last year, 5,200 African entrepreneurs were doing business in Jinhua. Jinhua's investments in Africa reached more than $37 million, with 49 enterprises on the continent.
Africa is the continent with the most potential in the world, providing great opportunities. With the deepening of the Belt and Road Initiative, I think China's private companies in Africa can do business there and provide help, making it a win-win cooperation.
Over the past 2 decades, China-Africa cooperation has reached impressive achievements. In 2019, direct Chinese investment stock in Africa topped over $49 billion, up nearly 100-fold from 2000. And the future still holds opportunities for many companies.
Many private companies have expressed a desire to increase their investment in Africa. In addition to the pharmaceutical and medical industries, we plan to establish more overseas industrial zones, so our cooperation with Africa will be stronger and bring more opportunities for joint development.
China and Africa have grown more united, and the relations have strengthened through fighting the pandemic together. By late October, China had delivered medical aid to more than 50 African countries and sent nearly 160 medical teams there. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. The two sides will continue to strengthen cooperation in health, economic revitalization, and cultural communication. Shang Jianlong, CGTN, Jinhua, Zhejiang Province.
Time for a short break. Your sports news up next. Coming up, the owner of Mamelodi Sundowns, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, nominated for the Confederation of African Football presidency.